You destroyed our $3,000 drone, you vandal. We're suing you for everything, plus damages and legal fees.
The HOA president screamed it in my face, slamming the lawsuit papers against my door with a smug grin that said she'd already won. My only crime? Knocking their surveillance drone out of the sky after it hovered outside my 16-year-old daughter's bedroom window at dawn. Lens locked on her while she was changing, recording her most private moment. For weeks, that buzzing predator had stalked the neighborhood, over barbecues, kids' sleepovers, family dinners, turning our homes into a surveillance prison. The second I saw it spying on my own child, I grabbed a long pole and smashed it down hard. The crash into the bushes felt like the only justice left. Now, they're coming for my house, my savings, everything. Would you let them spy on your teenage daughter? But the footage I recovered from that memory card exposed their illegal spying operation, and the brutal price they're about to pay starts now. Hi, I'm Rex Caldwell, 45, divorced electrician, and according to my HOA board, public enemy number 1. 6 months ago, I moved to Willowbrook Estates, thinking I'd found suburban paradise for me and my 16-year-old daughter, Sage. Manicured lawns, quiet streets, the kind of neighborhood where the biggest scandal should be Mrs. Johnson's garden gnomes facing the wrong direction. The realtor kept gushing about community standards. Should have been my first red flag. My morning coffee had this perfect mix of steam and sawdust floating in from my garage workshop. I was actually optimistic about our fresh start. That delusion lasted exactly 18 days. Enter Delilah Winters, HOA, president, real estate agent, and walking proof that small amounts of power create the worst kinds of people. Picture your most entitled Karen, give her legal authority over your property, and add a blonde bob so sharp it could cut glass. She materialized at my door on a Tuesday with a measuring tape, and that special smile reserved for delivering bad news. Mr. Caldwell, your shed violates setback requirements by 14 inches. I showed her my city permit. Full compliance with all municipal codes. City doesn't supersede our covenants, she chirped, clicking her pen like she was keeping score. $500 fine. Next day. Then the hits kept coming. Mailbox wrong shade of black, $200. Christmas lights up 1 day late, $150. Sage's basketball hoop making excessive noise at 3 in the afternoon, $300. Delilah's floral perfume hung in the air after each visit, like some kind of bureaucratic poison cloud. She's targeting you, whispered Mrs. Finley, my 72-year-old neighbor. Rest of us don't get hit this hard. That night I cracked open the HOA covenant book. 50 pages of legal gibberish designed to let them fine you for breathing wrong. Aesthetic standards must align with community values. Translation: we'll make up rules as we go. But here's the thing about being an electrician. You document everything. Every wire, every violation, every safety issue. I started photographing every fine, every property inspection, every time Delilah showed up with her measuring tools. And here's where I got smart. I started recording her visits on my phone. Just audio at first, then video when she wasn't looking. Call it professional paranoia, but something about this whole operation felt off. The gravel crunched under my boots during evening walks, watching neighbors dive inside whenever they spotted Delilah's white Mercedes, prowling the streets like a suburban shark. Then came her masterpiece, enhanced security measures. At the monthly HOA meeting, she announced their new toy with the enthusiasm of a dictator unveiling surveillance cameras. Comprehensive property compliance monitoring through advanced aerial technology. Translation: we bought a drone to spy on you. Garrett Bloom, vice president and professional clipboard hugger, nodded along like this was totally normal. Maxine Torres scribbled notes with the focus of someone documenting evidence for future prosecution. Aerial surveillance capabilities will ensure rapid violation detection, Delilah continued. I pulled out my phone right there and hit record. If they wanted to play Big Brother, I'd document every second of it. Any questions? She asked. I raised my hand. What's your policy on privacy? Recording through Windows? Her smile could have frozen hell. All monitoring occurs in accordance with HOA authority. Community standards supersede individual privacy expectations. The room went dead quiet. That's when I knew this wasn't just petty bureaucracy. This was warfare. I went home and set up my first security camera that night. Not just for protection, for evidence. If Delilah wanted to turn our neighborhood into a police state, I'd make sure every violation of our rights got recorded in high definition. What I didn't know was that within 2 weeks, their drone would be hovering outside my daughter's bedroom window, and I'd be reaching for something a lot more effective than a camera. The drone showed up on a Monday morning, like a mechanical vulture circling fresh roadkill. I was drinking coffee when that angry wasp buzzing cut through the peace. Through my kitchen window, I watched this sleek white machine hovering above my backyard, camera gimbal rotating like a robotic eyeball hunting for violations. Sage poked her head out. "Dad, what's that noise?" "Our new big brother," I said, already grabbing my phone. Two could play the surveillance game. The drone made lazy circles for 15 minutes, then drifted over to terrorize the Johnsons. Professional equipment, probably $3,000 worth of privacy invasion funded by our own HOA dues. My electrician brain kicked in, and I remembered reading somewhere that the FAA actually has rules about this stuff. Turns out, flying drones over private property for surveillance without consent isn't just creepy, it's federally illegal with serious penalties. Great. My HOA was breaking federal law with my own money. I pulled up the board meeting minutes that night. Security Enhancement Fund, $5,000 approved. No homeowner vote, naturally. $3,000 for a DJI Phantom 4 Pro, the rest for operational expenses. Probably Garrett's gas money driving around our neighborhood like a suburban dictator. Tuesday brought our first real confrontation. Sage was studying outside, sprawled on her blanket in shorts and a tank top, when the drone descended like some perverted mechanical peeping Tom. Hovered directly overhead, close enough she could see her reflection in the camera lens. "Dad!" She bolted for the house. I exploded outside to find Garrett on the sidewalk, controller in his sweaty grip, smirking like he'd caught us running a meth lab. "Get that thing away from my daughter." "Public airspace, buddy." He tapped his ever-present clipboard, checking for violations. "What violations?" "She's reading. Unauthorized recreational use without proper seating arrangements." I blinked. "Are you completely insane?" Section 4.7b requires outdoor activities utilize approved furniture. Your daughter's blanket constitutes unpermitted ground covering. The metallic whir of rotors filled the silence. I started recording with my phone. If these idiots wanted to create violations out of thin air, I'd document every ridiculous second. That night I filed a formal complaint. Got a rejection letter faster than Amazon Prime delivery. Aerial monitoring complies with all applicable community standards. I posted our story on the neighborhood Facebook group with video evidence. 47 reactions, 23 comments, and suddenly my phone was buzzing with private messages from other victims. "Mrs. Finley, things scared my grandchildren. They thought it was hunting them." The Millers, follows our dog during walks. Poor buddy won't leave the house. Sarah Martinez, caught it staring through my toddler's window during nap time. But Delilah's real masterstroke was the fine avalanche that followed. Grass exceeds 3.2-inch maximum height. I measured, exactly 3 inches. Failure to remedy within 24 hours. $50 daily, accumulating like interest on a payday loan. My lawyer buddy Jake thought I was pranking him until I showed the documentation. "This is systematic harassment, Rex. Keep recording everything, but for Christ's sake, don't give them ammunition." I was already 3 steps ahead, filming every drone encounter, screenshotting every bogus fine, building a case file that would make the FBI proud. The diesel fumes from Garrett's monster truck became my daily alarm clock, parked across from my driveway like he was running counter-surveillance. Friday evening brought the breaking point. I'm grilling burgers for Sage and her friend Emma when the drone appeared, descending to eye level just 15 feet away. Camera zoomed in on the girls' faces while they tried to eat. "Mr. Caldwell," Emma whispered, "why is that robot staring at us?" I marched to where Garrett stood grinning with his controller. "You're filming minors without consent. Pretty sure that's a felony." Community compliance monitoring, checking for unauthorized gathering violations. "It's my daughter and one friend eating hamburgers." Section 2.4c limits outdoor social activities to immediate family, unless proper permits filed 72 hours in advance. The charcoal smell mixed with my boiling blood pressure. These people weren't enforcing rules, they were manufacturing crimes. Mini twist time. That's when I noticed Garrett wasn't just operating the drone randomly. He was following a systematic pattern, hitting specific houses in sequence, spending extra time over families with teenagers. This wasn't harassment. This was targeted surveillance of children. I pulled out my phone and started filming him filming us, creating my own evidence loop. Smile, Garrett. You're now starring in my harassment documentation. His controller almost slipped from his hands. You can't record me. Public sidewalk, buddy. Same rules you just quoted me. That night, Sage asked if we could move. I feel watched all the time, Dad. It's gross. I tucked her in with a promise. No more creepy drones, sweetheart. Daddy's about to turn this game around. Time to upgrade my surveillance operation to match theirs. The drone harassment went full psychopath the next week, and I realized we'd crossed from petty neighborhood drama into something that would make Big Brother jealous. Monday morning, that mechanical vulture pressed its camera lens against our kitchen window during breakfast, tracking Sage's every bite like she was some kind of exotic zoo specimen. Dad, make it stop, she whispered, covering her face with her hands. I grabbed my phone, adding to what I privately called my federal evidence collection. Outside, Garrett stood with his controller like he was directing the world's creepiest nature documentary. You're filming a 16-year-old eating cereal, you pervert. Kitchen compliance monitoring, he replied without blinking. Improper breakfast posture violates health and safety protocols. I kept recording. Did you seriously just invoke breakfast posture protocols? The drone pulled back exactly 6 inches. Problem solved, in Garrett's twisted mind. Tuesday escalated to school bus stalking. I watched from my workshop window as the drone followed Sage to her stop, hovering above her and 3 younger kids like a mechanical vulture circling prey. The kindergartners started crying. My phone buzzed. Dad, it's following me again. The little kids think it's going to hurt them. I drove over with my camera rolling, documenting everything. Garrett's clipboard was ready. Bus stop queue formation compliance. Children must maintain proper safety spacing. The beautiful irony wasn't lost on me. I was now surveilling the surveillors, creating my own documentary of their descent into madness. That evening, Mrs. Finley appeared at my door with trembling hands and Ring doorbell footage. Her 6-year-old granddaughter had been playing hopscotch when the drone descended like a predator, camera zooming tight on the child's terrified face. This is America, she said, her accent thick with emotion, not some police country. I'd been researching during lunch breaks, diving into harassment statutes. Turns out the legal system takes a very dim view of adults systematically stalking children with recording devices. Words like reasonable expectation of privacy and criminal harassment kept appearing. Legal terminology that basically translates to, these people are completely screwed. Wednesday's emergency HOA meeting was dystopian theater at its finest. Enhanced security protocol, Delilah announced, like she was unveiling a community swimming pool. Residents hereby waive privacy expectations for comprehensive compliance monitoring. She slid papers toward me. Your interference fine, $1,000. I stood slowly, phone recording every word. You can't waive constitutional rights with HOA paperwork, Delilah. Her smile could have frozen hellfire. Perhaps you should consider relocating somewhere more compatible with your attitude toward community standards. That phrasing triggered my alarm bells. This wasn't just harassment, it sounded like a threat with serious teeth. Thursday's detective work revealed the stunning truth. Hours digging through public property records unveiled Delilah's masterpiece, a full-scale real estate theft operation disguised as HOA enforcement. 3 neighborhood families foreclosed in 18 months for unpaid fines. Buyer of all 3 properties at sheriff's sales? Delilah Winters Realty. Reseller at 40% markup after violations resolved? Same company. Mrs. Finley showed me her foreclosure notice. $3,400 for unauthorized garden gnome orientation and improper bird feeder elevation standards. The woman was literally stealing homes using bureaucratic paperwork as her weapon of choice. Friday night's sleepover incident shattered my last restraint. Sage was celebrating Emma's birthday with 2 friends when piercing screams erupted from upstairs. I bounded up 3 steps at a time to find 3 teenage girls huddled together, pointing at the window in absolute horror. The drone hovered outside Sage's second-story bedroom window, camera lens pressed against glass, recording everything while the girls had been changing into pajamas. Through the window, Garrett stood in the street below, controller steady, wearing the most revolting smile in human history. I was outside before rational thought could intervene. "You were filming teenage girls getting dressed." "Unauthorized overnight guest documentation," he responded with chilling calm. "Visual confirmation required for proper violation processing." Diesel fumes from his oversized truck, mixed with the metallic taste of pure rage flooding my mouth. My hands shook as I filmed his response, building evidence that would either destroy them or destroy me. That night, Sage delivered the announcement that broke something fundamental inside me. "I'm never having friends over again, Dad. I can't put them through this humiliation." Looking at my daughter's tear-streaked face, I felt the last thread of my patience snap like a guitar string under too much tension. These people had just crossed a line that would end their little surveillance empire permanently. Time to grab my paintball gun and teach them about consequences. Sunday morning, 6:30 a.m. The sound that yanked me from sleep wasn't my alarm. It was that familiar, angry wasp buzz outside Sage's bedroom window. I rolled over and peered through my blinds. There it was, hovering 3 feet from her second-story window like a mechanical stalker, camera lens locked on her room while she was getting dressed for her morning run. That was it, nuclear option time. I threw on jeans and headed for the garage, where my old Tipman paintball gun hung on the wall like a forgotten weapon waiting for its moment of glory. 20 years since I'd used it for weekend games with my electrician crew, back when my biggest worry was which beer to crack after work. Loading it with high-velocity paintballs, I stepped into my backyard with the calm focus of a man who'd finally found his breaking point. My phone was already recording. If I was going down for this, I'd document every second. The drone hung motionless, recording my daughter through glass. Sage spotted it and screamed, diving behind her dresser like she was dodging artillery fire. I raised the paintball gun with 25 years of steady electrical work behind my aim. 30 feet away, the thing hovered like the world's most expensive clay pigeon. "Smile for the camera," I muttered, squeezing the trigger. Thwack. Perfect shot. The paintball exploded against the camera gimbal in a burst of bright orange paint. The machine went into a death spiral, rotors shrieking like wounded metal, before crashing into my rose bushes with the most beautiful sound of destruction I'd ever heard. Pure, satisfying, justice. Garrett materialized from the sidewalk, running like his hair was on fire. "You destroyed HOA property, $3,000 in damages." "You were filming my daughter getting dressed," I replied, phone recording his meltdown. "That's called being a pervert." Community compliance monitoring, public airspace regulations. I gestured at his crashed spy toy, now wearing orange paint and rose thorns like war medals. "Well, your compliance got permanently discontinued." Neighbors were emerging from houses all down the street. Mrs. Finley gave me a not-so-subtle thumbs up from her porch. The Johnson's kid was grinning and filming with his phone, like this was the best entertainment he'd seen all year. "I'm calling the police," Garrett fumbled for his cell. "Go ahead. I'll explain why you were stalking children while you explain your $3,000 hobby." But here's where my electrician brain kicked in with the play of the century. I reached the wreckage first. While Garrett had his public breakdown, I calmly retrieved the drone pieces from my roses. The housing was cracked, but that beautiful micro SD card slot was intact. I popped out the memory card and pocketed it before he could blink. "That's evidence!" he screamed. "Absolutely," I agreed. "Evidence of whatever illegal recording you've been doing. Can't wait to share it with authorities." His face went white as copy paper. "You can't take that." "Already did. Thanks for the donation to my legal defense fund." The lawsuit hit my doorstep 48 hours later, courtesy of a process server who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Delilah's brother-in-law's law firm wanted $3 grand in damages, $10 grand punitive, plus legal fees that would probably fund their next vacation. They'd also filed a restraining order, claiming I was a violent threat to board safety. Hearing scheduled for Friday. Perfect timing for maximum neighborhood drama. Thursday night's emergency HOA meeting had one agenda item: addressing violence against board members. Translation: public execution, HOA style. Tuesday night in my workshop, I finally examined my prize. Hands shaking slightly, I slid that memory card into my laptop reader. Garrett's panic reaction told me this wasn't routine surveillance footage. The first files were standard harassment material. My yard, neighbors' pools, Mrs. Finley's garden. Annoying but expected. But scrolling through 43 video files spanning 6 weeks revealed something that made my stomach drop. This wasn't random privacy violation. This was systematic stalking with laser focus on children's bedrooms, bathroom windows, and private family moments. File after file of illegal recordings. Timestamps proving deliberate targeting patterns. Hours of footage that would make any prosecutor start salivating. I hadn't just shot down a drone. I'd accidentally uncovered a criminal surveillance operation that would make the evening news. Wednesday night, I called Jake. Remember when you said don't do anything stupid? Oh Christ, what did you do? Shot their spy drone out of the sky. But Jake, what I found on their memory card changes everything. We need to meet. Tonight. By Thursday morning, the game had completely flipped. I wasn't some angry homeowner facing bankruptcy anymore. I was sitting on evidence that would end careers and start federal investigations. Time to turn the tables on these surveillance state wannabes. Jake arrived at my house that Wednesday night, carrying his laptop and wearing the expression of a lawyer who just realized his friend had stepped in something much bigger than expected. "Show me what you found," he said, settling into my kitchen chair. I slid the memory card into his laptop and started the tour of hell. 43 video files, 6 weeks of systematic surveillance. But it's not what you think. The first file looked routine, aerial shot of the neighborhood. But Jake's eyebrows climbed higher with each timestamp. Rex, this drone was operating every single day, sometimes multiple flights. Keep watching. File 12 showed the real pattern. The drone wasn't just randomly surveilling. It was conducting detailed reconnaissance of specific families. Children's bedroom windows, bathroom schedules, family routines when parents weren't home. Jesus Christ, Jake whispered. This is criminal stalking with a federal aviation twist. But the truly sickening revelation came with file 27. Clear footage of Delilah herself entering my backyard while Sage and I were at her school play. She planted garden items that violated HOA covenants, photographed them with her phone, then removed them. She's manufacturing violations, I said. Watch this. File after file showed the same pattern across 7 different properties. Delilah trespassing, planting evidence, documenting fake violations, then issuing fines the next day. Mrs. Finley's unauthorized garden gnome that appeared and disappeared overnight. The Millers' improper trash container that materialized during their vacation. Jake was furiously taking notes. This is organized fraud. She's using HOA authority to create fake violations, then profiting from the enforcement. It gets worse. I pulled up property records on my laptop. 3 families foreclosed in the past year for unpaid HOA fines. Guess who bought their houses at sheriff's sales? Jake's face went pale. Delilah's real estate company. She resold them for 40% markup after the violations magically resolved themselves. We spent 2 hours cross-referencing drone footage with HOA violation notices. The pattern was undeniable. Every fine was preceded by surveillance footage showing Delilah or Garrett planting evidence or manufacturing violations out of normal family activities. Rex, this isn't just HOA harassment. This is a federal criminal enterprise using neighborhood authority as cover for real estate fraud. The final piece of evidence made both our stomachs turn. Footage from inside multiple homes, bathroom windows, children's bedrooms, private family moments. The drone had been equipped with telephoto lenses capable of recording through glass from hundreds of feet away. Mail theft, trespassing, fraud, invasion of privacy, stalking of minors, Jake counted on his fingers. And if they crossed state lines or used federal communications for any of this, we're looking at RICO violations. I leaned back in my chair, finally understanding the scope of what I'd stumbled into. So when I shot down their drone, you didn't just stop harassment. You accidentally uncovered a multi-year criminal conspiracy that's probably victimized dozens of families. Jake closed his laptop with a snap. Rex, you're not the defendant anymore. You're the key witness in what's about to become a federal case. The room went quiet, except for the hum of my refrigerator. 6 months ago, I'd moved here for a peaceful suburban life. Now I was sitting on evidence that could send 3 people to federal prison. What do we do now? Jake grinned for the first time all evening. Now we call the FBI and watch your little HOA problem turn into their federal investigation nightmare. He paused at my front door. One more thing, Rex. That emergency meeting tomorrow night? Don't miss it. Let them dig their graves a little deeper while we prepare the evidence package that's going to bury them. After he left, I sat in my workshop staring at that memory card. Such a tiny thing to hold so much destruction. Tomorrow night, Delilah would stand in front of the entire neighborhood, probably gloating about her lawsuit and her restraining order, thinking she'd won this war. She had no idea I was about to turn her surveillance operation into her federal indictment. Time to start planning the most satisfying public humiliation in HOA history. Thursday morning, Jake called with news that made my coffee taste like victory. I've got you Rebecca Martinez from the Civil Rights Division. She specializes in privacy violations and government overreach. When I described your situation, she actually laughed. Laughed? Rex, she said this is the most clear-cut federal case she's seen in 5 years. Organized surveillance, mail theft, fraud. It's like these people studied criminal law and decided to break every statute simultaneously. Rebecca arrived at my house that afternoon carrying 3 legal briefcases and wearing the satisfied expression of a prosecutor who'd just been handed Christmas in July. She spread out papers on my kitchen table like a general planning a battle campaign. Mr. Caldwell, what you've documented here violates approximately 15 federal statutes. She tapped the printed screenshots from the drone footage. Video surveillance of private property without consent breaks the Fourth Amendment. When it involves minors, penalties become seriously ugly. I'd been researching this stuff for weeks, but hearing it from an actual federal attorney made my electrician brain buzz with satisfaction. My electrician training had taught me that documentation beats everything, so I spent the afternoon creating the most comprehensive evidence package in HOA history. I installed additional security cameras covering every angle of my property, motion-activated, cloud-backed up, tamper-proof. If they tried any retaliation, I'd catch every second in high definition. The beauty of being an electrician is knowing exactly how to set up surveillance systems that actually work. Hidden cameras with overlapping coverage zones, backup power supplies, redundant recording systems. These people wanted to play surveillance games. I'd show them how professionals do it. My neighbor collaboration network had grown into something beautiful. Mrs. Finley shared her Ring doorbell footage. The Johnsons provided their security camera angles. Sarah Martinez contributed her home surveillance system recordings. We'd created a neighborhood-wide documentation network that captured every HOA board movement. Rex, this is like having our own intelligence operation, Mrs. Finley said, reviewing the compiled footage on my laptop. We have more evidence than most criminal trials. Rebecca reviewed our evidence mountain and whistled. 40 hours of illegal drone footage, documented trespassing, manufactured violations, financial fraud patterns, systematic harassment of minors. This case is so strong it practically prosecutes itself. But the sweetest part of our strategy was the bait we'd set. I deliberately created a minor technical covenant violation, placed a small garden gnome exactly 14 inches from my property line, instead of the required 15 inches. If they take the bait and plant evidence again, we'll have them committing federal crimes on camera in real time, I explained to Rebecca. She grinned. Entrapment only applies to law enforcement. Private citizens documenting crimes? That's called being a good witness. Thursday evening, I installed the final piece of our trap. Professional-grade security cameras with night vision, positioned to record any trespassing attempts. Motion sensors triggered instant cloud uploads and text alerts to my phone. The local news had finally taken interest, thanks to Rebecca's media contacts. Channel 7's investigative reporter would be, coincidentally, present at tonight's HOA meeting, following up on community governance concerns. Rex, by tomorrow morning, your HOA board is going to wish they'd never heard of surveillance drones, Rebecca said, packing up her briefcases. Federal charges for mail theft, invasion of privacy, organized fraud, and conspiracy. We're talking years in federal prison. I walked through my house that evening, checking security systems and backup recordings. The smell of fresh coffee mixed with the satisfaction of knowing that justice was about 12 hours away from being served. Sage helped me review the final evidence package. Dad, you turned into like a detective or something. Sometimes when bullies push you around, sweetheart, the best response is building a better case than their lawyers ever could. The plan was perfect. Tomorrow night, Delilah would stand before the entire neighborhood, probably gloating about her restraining order and her lawsuit, thinking she'd crush the troublesome electrician who dared fight back. She had no idea I was about to present federal evidence that would turn her HOA dictatorship into a criminal prosecution that would make national news. Time to watch some very confident people learn about consequences. Friday morning brought the first signs that Delilah's confidence was cracking around the edges. I was installing my final security camera when I noticed Garrett's truck making its third slow drive past my house before 8 a.m. Through my kitchen window, I watched him park across the street and sit there for 20 minutes, talking rapidly on his phone like a man whose world was falling apart. My phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Finley. They had emergency board meeting last night, very loud arguing in community center. The desperate moves started immediately. At 10 a.m., a process server arrived with papers attempting to change the HOA covenants retroactively. New language that would somehow legalize their surveillance operation and grant them expanded security monitoring authority. The legal equivalent of trying to unrob a bank by making theft legal after you got caught. Rebecca laughed when I sent her photos of the documents. Desperation makes people stupid, Rex. They just created more evidence of criminal intent. But their real panic showed up that afternoon when my work van got keyed in my own driveway. Deep scratches along both sides, spelling out "move away" in letters that probably took an hour to carve. I documented everything with my phone, then checked my security cameras. Crystal clear footage of Garrett sneaking around my van at 2:47 a.m., using what looked like a house key to methodically destroy my paint job. Amateur hour, I muttered, downloading the footage to my evidence file. The harassment calls to my electrical contracting company started the next morning. Anonymous complaints claiming I was unstable, aggressive toward customers, and unsafe around residential properties. My boss called, confused but supportive. Rex, I've got 3 calls saying you're some kind of menace. I told them they must have the wrong Rex Caldwell, because you're the most professional guy I've got. But the lowest blow came Tuesday afternoon. Child Protective Services showed up at my door with a complaint alleging I was an unstable parent who had violent tendencies and kept dangerous weapons accessible to minors. The social worker was apologetic but thorough, inspecting my home while I explained the HOA harassment situation. She found my paintball gun properly stored, reviewed my security footage of the drone incidents, and quickly realized she'd been weaponized by people trying to destroy my family. Mr. Caldwell, this complaint appears to be retaliatory. We see this sometimes in custody disputes, but HOA harassment? That's a new one. She left with a report that would probably generate its own investigation into whoever filed the false complaint. Meanwhile, Sage was dealing with the spillover at school. Kids whose parents served on the HOA board started spreading rumors about her crazy dad and his terrorist activities. She came home in tears Tuesday, asking if we could just move somewhere normal. Dad, Emma's mom won't let her come over anymore. She thinks you're dangerous. I held my daughter while she cried, feeling rage burn through my chest like acid. These people weren't just attacking me. They were destroying my kids' social life with their lies. But Wednesday night delivered the evidence that would end them permanently. My bait strategy worked perfectly. The garden gnome I'd deliberately placed 14 inches from my property line instead of 15 had triggered their evidence-planting reflex like clockwork. My motion-activated cameras caught Garrett breaking into my backyard at 2:15 a.m., planting additional violation items. Unauthorized garden decorations, improperly colored trash containers, even a small promotional sign he'd clearly stolen from someone's yard. But the beautiful part was what happened next. He spent 40 minutes arranging and photographing everything with his phone, muttering to himself the entire time. My audio pickup caught gems like, "This'll teach that troublemaker," and "Nobody fights the HOA and wins." The violation notice appeared in my mailbox Thursday morning, citing the exact items he'd planted 12 hours earlier. The timestamps on my security footage matched perfectly with his documentation photos. I called Rebecca immediately. We've got them committing federal crimes on high-definition video with audio confession. Rex, this is prosecutorial gold. Trespassing, evidence tampering, fraud, conspiracy. They just gift-wrapped their own federal indictment. Thursday evening brought the final desperate move. Delilah showed up at my door with what she probably thought was her checkmate offer. $5,000 to settle everything quietly, she said, her usual arrogance replaced by something that looked suspiciously like fear. Drop the complaints, sign a non-disclosure agreement, and we'll forget this ever happened. I kept my voice recorder app running throughout her entire visit. So you're offering to pay me to hide evidence of federal crimes? We may have gotten a little enthusiastic with our monitoring activities, but it's nothing that can't be resolved between neighbors. You mean the monitoring that includes filming children through bedroom windows? Her face went pale. Look, Rex, you don't want to go to war with us. We have resources, connections, legal teams. And I have 40 hours of illegal surveillance footage that's currently being reviewed by federal prosecutors. She left without another word, but the smell of her desperation lingered in my doorway like cheap perfume. Tomorrow night's HOA meeting was going to be absolutely epic. Saturday morning, Delilah made her final mistake. She tried to buy my silence with a recording device running in my shirt pocket. She appeared at my door at 8 a.m., makeup perfect, but eyes showing the kind of strain that comes from lawyers explaining federal prison sentences. I'd started recording every interaction with these people, and this conversation was about to become evidence exhibit A in a bribery case. Rex, we need to talk, privately. She glanced around like she was worried about surveillance. The irony was delicious. Sure, Delilah, come on in. I led her to my kitchen, positioning myself so my hidden camera would catch her face. She sat down heavily, her usual confidence replaced by something that looked suspiciously like panic. This has all gotten out of hand, she began. Maybe we were a little overzealous with our monitoring activities. I let her talk while my phone app captured every word. Look, Rex, you're a reasonable man. You understand how property values work, how community standards need enforcement. Sometimes that requires enhanced oversight. Enhanced oversight, I repeated. Is that what we're calling stalking children now? Her composure cracked slightly. We never intended to. The surveillance was strictly for compliance purposes. Compliance purposes that included filming my daughter changing clothes. That was an unfortunate misunderstanding. Garrett may have been overly thorough in his documentation. I leaned back, letting her dig deeper. So what's your solution, Delilah? Full settlement. We drop all lawsuits, remove all fines, and provide a $5,000 goodwill payment. She slid an envelope across my table. All you have to do is sign a non-disclosure agreement and return the memory card. There it was. Attempted bribery captured in high-definition audio. You want me to hide evidence of federal crimes in exchange for $5,000? It's not hiding evidence, she said quickly. It's resolving a neighborhood dispute privately. These things don't need to involve outside authorities. Outside authorities like the FBI agents who are currently reviewing your surveillance footage. Her face went dead white. You already turned it over? Delilah, did you really think I'd keep evidence of children being stalked in my desk drawer? She stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against my kitchen floor like nails on a chalkboard. You don't understand what you're dealing with, Rex. We have connections, resources, and I have 40 hours of illegal surveillance footage that's already in federal hands. The next few days brought escalating desperation that would have been comical if it wasn't targeting my family. Sunday night, someone tried to break into my house while Sage and I were at her school play. My security system triggered, sending alerts to my phone and automatically uploading footage to cloud storage. The intruder wore a hoodie, but his gait and body language screamed, Garrett. Nothing was stolen. This was pure intimidation, letting us know they could get inside whenever they wanted. Monday brought a coordinated character assassination campaign. Anonymous letters appeared in neighbors' mailboxes claiming I was a dangerous individual with violent tendencies who posed a threat to community safety. The letters urged residents to support my removal from the neighborhood through legal means. Tuesday escalated to harassment of anyone who'd supported me. Mrs. Finley received a foreclosure acceleration notice, demanding immediate payment of her accumulated fines or face sheriff's sale within 30 days. The Johnsons got cited for 17 different violations that had somehow appeared overnight. Sarah Martinez found her car tires slashed in the school parking lot. But Wednesday delivered the evidence that sealed their fate. My security cameras caught Maxine Torres sneaking through my backyard at 3 a.m., attempting to plant what looked like drug paraphernalia near my workshop. She apparently planned to discover it during a surprise HOA inspection, then call police about my illegal activities. The beautiful thing about being an electrician is understanding how motion sensors work. My cameras triggered the moment she stepped onto my property, flooding the area with infrared illumination that caught everything in crystal clarity. She spent 20 minutes arranging small plastic bags and what appeared to be a digital scale, photographing everything with her phone. But when she tried to leave, my motion-activated floodlights hit her like a prison searchlight. The footage of her running across my backyard in full panic mode, dropping evidence bags as she fled, would have won an award for Best Comedy Performance if it wasn't documenting felony evidence tampering. Thursday morning, Rebecca called with news that made my week. Rex, the FBI has opened a formal investigation. They're calling it Operation Neighborhood Watch. Your little HOA problem just became a federal task force priority. But the final piece of their desperation came Thursday evening. Garrett started following Sage home from school, maintaining exactly the legal distance to avoid restraining order violations, while making sure she knew she was being watched. My daughter called me in tears. "Dad, he's driving behind me again, the same truck that always parks outside our house." That night, I sat in my workshop, cleaning my paintball gun while reviewing security footage of 3 people who'd systematically terrorized my family for months. Tomorrow's HOA meeting wasn't going to be a community gathering. It was going to be a public arrest warrant execution. Friday evening, 7 p.m. The community center was packed with 87 residents and 3 people who had no idea their criminal empire was about to collapse on live television. I arrived early with Rebecca and 3 federal agents dressed as ordinary citizens. Channel 7's investigative reporter set up in the back corner, camera rolling for what she'd been told was a community governance story, but was about to become the lead segment on criminal prosecution of elected officials. Delilah called the meeting to order with her usual dictatorial confidence, standing behind the podium like she was addressing loyal subjects instead of victims of her surveillance state. Tonight we address the violence and harassment our board has endured from a single disruptive resident, she began, her voice carrying that special tone reserved for delivering public humiliation. Garrett sat beside her with a folder full of what I assumed were edited drone footage and manufactured evidence. Maxine clutched her notebook like a security blanket, probably containing financial records she thought no one would ever see. Mr. Rex Caldwell has repeatedly destroyed HOA property, violated restraining orders, and created a hostile environment that threatens our community's safety, Delilah continued, building toward her grand finale. Several neighbors shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Finley gave me an encouraging nod from the third row. The Johnsons looked like they were watching a car accident in slow motion. Therefore, the board has voted to pursue maximum legal penalties, including financial damages, that will ensure Mr. Caldwell understands the consequences of violence against community authority. She gestured toward me with theatrical smugness. "Mr. Caldwell, would you like to explain your terrorist activities to your neighbors?" I stood slowly, laptop bag in hand, feeling 87 pairs of eyes tracking my movement. The federal agents positioned themselves near the exits, like they were attending a casual neighborhood meeting, instead of preparing to make arrests. "Actually, Delilah, I'd love to share some footage with everyone." I walked to the front, connected my laptop to the projector system, and smiled at the woman who'd spent 6 months destroying my family's peace of mind. I think the community deserves to see exactly what kind of security monitoring our HOA board has been conducting. The first image appeared on the large screen. High-definition footage of Garrett breaking into my backyard at 2:47 a.m., methodically planting violation evidence while muttering threats. The room went dead silent. "This is Mr. Bloom, trespassing on my property to manufacture HOA violations," I announced, my voice carrying clearly through the shocked silence. "Notice the timestamp. This is happening 12 hours before I received a citation for the exact items he's planting." "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, my voice cutting through the chaos. "This is just a sample of 43 hours of illegal surveillance footage your HOA board has been collecting. Children in bedrooms, families in bathrooms, private conversations in backyards." I clicked to the final slide. Financial records showing Delilah's real estate company purchasing foreclosed homes and reselling them at massive profits. And here's proof that Mrs. Winters has been using manufactured violations to force families from their homes, then purchasing those properties through her real estate business for resale profit. That's when the federal agents stood up and identified themselves. FBI. "We have warrants for Delilah Winters, Garrett Bloom, and Maxine Torres." The room exploded into chaos. Delilah's face had gone from confident to terrified in the span of 5 minutes. Garrett tried to run, but got tackled by my neighbor's teenage son, who played linebacker for the high school football team. "This is all fake," Delilah screamed, as handcuffs clicked around her wrists. "Manufactured evidence. He's the criminal." I walked up to the microphone while agents read them their rights. "The illegal surveillance stops now. The manufactured violations stop now. The terrorism of children and families in this neighborhood stops now." I held up the memory card that had started everything. Sometimes you have to document a surveillance state before you can destroy it. The entire room stood and applauded as 3 federal agents escorted 3 former HOA board members toward the back exit. Channel 7's reporter was getting everything on camera, already crafting the story that would make national news by morning. As the handcuffed trio disappeared through the community center doors, I addressed the crowd one final time. The community center is now officially drone-free, and it's going to stay that way. 6 months later, I'm sitting in the same community center where Delilah's criminal empire collapsed, watching my neighbors vote on playground equipment instead of surveillance policies. The federal sentencing had been swift and satisfying. Delilah got 4 years in federal prison, plus $200,000 in restitution to victims. Garrett received 3 years and lost his security license permanently. Maxine, who'd cooperated fully and provided additional evidence of financial fraud, got 18 months and helped us recover most of the stolen HOA funds. The criminal charges read like a prosecutor's Christmas list: mail theft, conspiracy, fraud, violation of civil rights, organized harassment, and about 12 other federal violations that carried penalties I hadn't even known existed. All fraudulent fines were refunded. A total of $127,000 returned to homeowners who'd been victims of the manufactured violation scheme. Mrs. Finley's foreclosure was not only dismissed, but resulted in a settlement that ensured she'd never worry about property taxes again. The old HOA was dissolved completely and reformed with what we call constitutional protections: strict limits on surveillance, transparent financial reporting, and actual votes by residents on any expenditures over $500. I got elected to the new board as Director of Oversight and Common Sense, a position we created specifically to ensure no future board could weaponize neighborhood authority against families. Rebecca Martinez had been right. This case became a federal model for prosecuting HOA corruption. Congressional hearings led to new federal guidelines restricting surveillance authority, and our story sparked copycat prosecutions in 4 neighboring states. The financial justice was equally satisfying. The class action lawsuit against the HOA's insurance company resulted in substantial compensation for every family who'd been harassed. Delilah's seized real estate assets funded community improvements that actually benefited residents, instead of enriching board members. Mrs. Finley used her settlement to establish the Neighborhood Protection Scholarship for children of immigrant families facing housing discrimination. The old surveillance equipment budget got redirected to the new playground, where kids now play without mechanical vultures circling overhead. But the personal healing meant more than legal victory. Sage's relationship with her friends was restored when their parents realized the dangerous dad narrative had been criminal propaganda. She started a privacy rights club at school that now has 43 members and has been featured in the local paper twice. My contracting business exploded with referrals from neighbors who'd witnessed the federal takedown. Turns out watching someone dismantle a surveillance state makes people confident in your problem-solving abilities. The annual Drone-Free Day festival we established draws families from 3 counties: Kids fly kites and play games, while parents share horror stories about their own HOA experiences. I've become an unofficial consultant for neighborhood groups facing similar harassment, teaching them how to document evidence and work with federal prosecutors. A documentary filmmaker from Los Angeles contacted me last month about creating a nationwide investigation into HOA corruption. Apparently, our little neighborhood drama exposed patterns that exist across America, and she wants to help other families fight back. The transformation has been remarkable. Where we once had surveillance cameras tracking children, we now have community garden plots where neighbors grow vegetables together. The old HOA office became a little free library where kids can borrow books instead of being documented for unauthorized reading activities. Sage graduated high school with a full scholarship, partly based on her essay about standing up to institutional abuse and defending civil rights. She's planning to study law with a focus on constitutional protection, inspired by watching federal agents arrest people who'd terrorized our family. 3 weeks ago, I received a call from a desperate father in Arizona whose HOA was using drones to harass his autistic son. 2 days later, a mother in Ohio contacted me about illegal fines designed to force her family's eviction. That's when Sage made the suggestion that changed everything. "Dad, you should start a YouTube channel. Rex's Justice Files or something like that. Help people fight back." Looking around this community center at families who can finally live in peace, I'm thinking she might be onto something. Because it turns out the best security system isn't surveillance cameras watching your neighbors. It's neighbors who actually give a damn about protecting each other.